Hey there, I'm Victoria, a certified Christian life coach, author, motivational speaker, and university educator, and I am obsessed with helping you navigate through life's ups and downs so that you can live day by day in God's peace despite the many external demands on your time and energy. The Choose to Think Inspirational podcast is about the delicate dance between God transforming you from the inside out and your personal responsibility for change, maturity, and refinement as a Christ follower. On the show, I'll help you connect the dots between your faith and your life in practical, meaningful ways while giving God room to do what only He can do, and so that you can shine your light for Christ and be better equipped to serve your family and help others around you. You can change every area of your life, one thought at a time. Welcome back to the Choose to Think Inspirational podcast, Brain Changer. Let's dive in. Everybody, and welcome back to the Choose to Think Inspirational podcast. Victoria Lighten here. I'm so grateful to have you and to be your host. I want to tell you about a gal named Nanci Lamborn, Lamborn. She was born and raised in the buckle of the Bible Belt, spent 25 years in corporate America. After experiencing firsthand the supernatural transformation of forgiveness and inner healing prayer, Nanci's journey took a significant turn as she embraced her calling into Christian ministry. She's an ordained minister and licensed chaplain, and she devotes her full-time efforts to helping individuals break free from their past, drawing from her own profoundly healing experiences. Nanci is also a devoted wife, mother, and an immensely proud grandmother. We share that in common. She finds joy in camping, yes. Savoring coffee, yes, I would say that for me too. Cultivating her garden, don't do so well there. And tending to her backyard chickens. I don't have chickens anymore either, but one of my kids does. Well, her passion is to see others walking free into their destiny, knowing and loving who God created them to be. She wrote a book called Angry Daughter: A Journey from Hatred to Love. Now, this particular book, it says, this is a little synopsis. Well into her mid-40s, Nanci Lamborn was a critical, angry Christian who carried a consuming hatred of her mom. Just let that sink in for a second. Frustration, annoyance, and offended contempt were constant companions at every family gathering, and these emotions robbed Nanci of her inner peace for decades. With no concept of the freedom available, she surrendered to heart-healing prayer and experienced profound transformation. She's actually going to talk about that very experience on the show today. From navigating the messy relationship with her dramatic, difficult mom to surviving traumatic abuse and finally assuming the role as a caregiver before her mom's tragic death, Nanci's story blends gritty, uncomfortable truth with beautiful and tender healing. And that's such a great way to describe this book. Now, as an ordained minister of inner healing, Nanci walks with hurting people to introduce them to the supernatural power of forgiveness, repentance, and release of the painful past to Jesus. Angry Daughter is Nanci's very personal journey down that same path to peace. Part personal growth, part hilarious memoir, and part self-help. Angry Daughter thematically weaves its way through resentment and grief to fear and shame, and from trauma to destiny. Nanci paves a clear pathway for those ready to begin their own journey of releasing their mom to the Lord in prayer. I think you're going to have a great experience. I kind of have to sigh because sometimes the topics are kind of heavy, especially this one in this book, and the courage that she had to step forward and put all of this to paper. She also has so many great pots on the stove right now and exciting adventures that lie ahead for her. But in about a half an hour, she and I go over some of the contents of the book. I share a few quotes from her book that I thought were really impactful, as well as the way the book is actually written, because each chapter, and there are quite a few of them, have little prayers at the end. And we're going to get into talking about that as well. But her journey is quite fascinating, and I applaud the Lord praise the Lord for the work that he has done in my sister's life. My sister, Nancy, I'm calling her my Christian sister. What she has allowed, she's opened the floodgates of her own heart and her mind to allow the Lord to step in and to heal her in the innermost parts. And if that's you, if you would be one to raise your hand and say, yes, I kind of want that, because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm tired of always being on edge and angry and really like mean and impatient. And, you know, I don't know why you're all those things. God does, but maybe there's something about your past that you haven't released and let go. Maybe there's a level of unforgiveness in your heart. And really, that's what I think the book is about. It's a lot about forgiveness, the power of forgiveness. And look what Jesus Christ did, how much we were forgiven so that we too could be loving and kind and forgiving to others. We all need forgiveness. We all goof. We all make mistakes. But God's love is there. His presence is there. His spirit is there to guide us on a healing journey and a new way out. So without further ado, here is Nanci. Well, welcome, Nanci, to the Choose to Think podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. And my goodness, I just read your book, and everyone knows about your book already. But I think what I walked away with, Nanci, was that to me, it was a book about forgiveness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the beginning of the story was forgiveness for sure.
Yeah. And I wanted to read maybe just a couple of quotes from your book.
Absolutely.
I neglected to put the page on this one, and I just have a couple really, but you wrote this. You said, I realized that going from despising to loving to losing my mother could have been a vastly different story. I very nearly became one of the many tragic statistics who refused to deal with the wounds of the past. I had every opportunity to end up saddled with resentment and regret after burying my mom, with lots of unfinished business to haunt me for decades. But the Lord, in His goodness, orchestrated otherwise. You want to talk a little bit about that and how that really
Yeah.
happened?
It's almost a bit of a summary of the whole book, really. Um, Before I began my journey of forgiveness and releasing the past, I'd never heard of anyone who had let go of the past. Raised in church, around religion a lot, fundamental, Jesus saves, amen.
Right.
But still full of bitter people, angry people, people that were fighting and families that were broken. And, this head knowledge of Jesus on Sunday did not translate into a home of peace and freedom and the capacity to actually forgive and lay down the traumas of the past. It was foreign. Um, and as I began my journey of forgiveness and transitioned into this capacity to see mom, love mom the way she was, and she never changed, but to be able to just love her where she was, I began to realize the gift that this was. And then stepping into full-time ministry myself to do what my mentor did for me. This has been over 7 years now. I began to see how many other people are still walking around so wounded and so angry and bitter and full of resentment, just like I was, right? Um, and I think it was a profound gift of awareness. And I think that phrase was probably written at the end of the first chapter. And that's actually sitting at my mother's deathbed, knowing that her time is ending and it's going to be very short. And just this profound awareness of gratitude. That was the overwhelming emotion that I felt. And it was really like this movie screen had played in my mind of what it could have been. I could have been at this moment full of anger, and because I never got my apology. We never had that conversation of her admitting the things of the past. And some people, even believers, think that that's where their freedom lies, is getting that acknowledgement, and never got that. but the Lord had done so much healing in me that it wasn't necessary to come from my mother, because I had already had the full healing and release I needed directly from the Lord. And so it's odd to call it beautiful in the face of death, but it was absolutely beautiful that I could remember good and feel good and talk about the good and remember sweet things and loving things, not the majority of the past, which was negative and traumatic and harmful. Um, and it was just I was so full of gratitude, um, that was really what stuck with me about that experience at her deathbed was, yes, we're grieving. Yes, there's loss. Yes, there's injustice at how she passed away. But the overwhelming, and even since then, it's been 2.5 years now, is gratitude. I'm so
Mhm.
thankful that I didn't carry this baggage, because I would be saddled with regret. I would have things still unresolved. And now as she's, passed away, a lot of people really struggle when the person that was their offender and abuser has now passed away and they still haven't done anything about it. Well, now what am I supposed to do?
Right.
The Lord can still work with that. But I was so grateful to have handled that on this side of her, on this side.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. What a blessing. Can you kind of walk us back just a little bit, Nanci? And when was that moment that you realized, okay, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to keep carrying this, or it is even baggage that I'm carrying. I recognize that I'm resentful or I have this anger. When was that cathartic moment really for you?
So it's really funny. I actually didn't orchestrate that moment on my own. Someone else orchestrated it for me.
Okay.
I would have actually been very offended had someone told me that I was full of anger and resentment.
Mm,
I would have been very offended by that, because I just, I assumed I was in the right at how I felt towards my mom because of the type of
right.
person she was. And it never occurred to me to feel any other way.
Mm,
Uh, but God, in His goodness, orchestrated a mentor to come to me through a small group that our church has started doing, and met this woman, the kind of one person that you just fall in love with immediately, oozed grace and peace and joy and wisdom, and just super lovable. Um, and we began to get to know her and her family, and she got to know our family through just small group connection. And I think I'd known her for about a year when she came up to me and just randomly asked, "Hey, I would love to experiment on you."
oh,
And I didn't really know what that meant. I knew that she did this weird prayer thing at her house, which I thought was very strange. But I just learned to love her and trust her. And I was like, all right, I'm game, whatever. I'm yours. And so she sat me down and walked me through my first really pivotal moment of inner healing, which was full of forgiveness, but it was full of the recognition of how angry I
mm,
was and how hurt I was and how painful it was. And it was very emotional. It was a very emotional time. It needed to be, because I'd buried all these emotions and they
right.
came out in other ways, right? I knew sort of that I was kind of a jerk. I really was kind of a jerk. But
Oh
I didn't
no.
care. I didn't care. I didn't care that I was a jerk. I didn't care that I cussed like a sailor. I didn't care that I talked about
Mm,
people horrifically all the time. I murdered thousands in my heart, you know, but I didn't
mm,
care, because this is who I am, this is
mm,
me. Um,
right.
but so much changed in that one thing. So coming to this awareness of this baggage really didn't happen until it was kind of presented to me in love, from someone
Right.
whose only agenda was to help me get free of it. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty, it was amazing. And I was stunned and shocked that a couple days after that prayer time with my mentor, that I went to my mom's for an obligatory visit. And I was shocked when I walked in the house, and I was like, wow, like I'm not tense and I'm not annoyed by being here. And like,
Wow.
she's not making me angry. What is this? This is great, So
Wow.
it was pivotal and profound. Yeah.
So what happened after that?
So my mom was still the same difficult person, but I was just blown away by the freedom. So I went back to my mentor and I said, I don't know what that is, but I want it all. Whatever that is, I want it all. It was like, I'd been fed saltines my whole life and someone had let me taste the dessert bar in a buffet. And I'm like, what is that? I want it all. And so my mentor actually gave me access to this massive library that she had collected over the years of different inner healing and ministry and deliverance tools I'd never heard of in my fundamental upbringing. And she also continued to have more ministry sessions with me where I'm dealing with other traumas and other, I don't share this in the book, but I actually walked through domestic violence. And so healing through that and forgiving that. And there's a significant identity crisis that comes out of childhood trauma and out of being a victim of domestic violence. So just working me through that, but also I'm learning. I became a sponge. I read and watched everything I could while I wasn't working to just understand this whole world of how do we get broken and what causes trauma and what brings wounds and how do we pick up lies and how do we heal from it and how do we release these things and how do we get truth. And so that really just catapulted me into the deep end of this journey. And so that all took place over the course of about a year, and less than 1 year later after that, I was pursuing ordination. The Lord called me out of full-time corporate work and dumped me into ministry, what my mentor was doing with me. And I've been doing that full-time now for over 7 years.
My goodness. But your mom passed, you said 2.5 years ago?
Yeah, she did.
And
So it was February 2022. Actually, had become her caregiver the prior September, October timeframe. She contracted COVID and it took everything out of her. She literally could not even hold a pencil because of
wow.
decimation to her body. We had put her in rehab center and it just was not equipped for her. And so I decided to become her caregiver, and my friends bought me a hospital bed, and I actually in the room I'm in now, and I brought her home to my house. And I nursed her back to life. I was just around the clock, and it was hard. Oh, it was hard. She was obese. She was coming off of addiction. She was angry. She was stubborn, all the things, totally incontinent. It was very hard. But I'd come through such a place of healing and forgiveness and my own heart restoration that it was easy to do. I nursed her back to health. She actually got well enough because I fed her healthy food and I didn't give her alcohol and I forced her to do the therapy and all the things. She actually was able to go back home. But then just a couple months after that, she died very suddenly, very tragically. And this story, the book itself actually begins there with processing her death and that moment of her passing. And I'd actually never planned to write the story. It just never would even enter my head that this was a story that needed to be told in the way it got told. But I've used it ever since then to just continue to minister to other people who've walked through their mother wounds, any wounds really, parental wounds, can be anybody. But last August, I sat down, did my own kind of writing retreat, sequestered myself, and I put pen to paper to write something else. And that whole first chapter came out.
Wow.
And so it was part of it was really cathartic for my grieving journey, my healing journey of her passing, just telling the story. I mean, I wept many times writing the book.
I'm sure.
But I thought, okay, Lord, I guess we're doing this now. And it just came really fast. The whole thing came very, very fast. And so, and that's where it's gone now. And it's been interesting to see how it's been used, how the Lord has used those moments, the prayers that are written in it that I would have prayed in a particular situation. I get so much feedback that it's allowing other people to finally be able to put words to what they couldn't put words to be able to pray in a way they never thought they needed to pray before. I've heard that a lot, like, oh, I didn't realize I needed to forgive this in this way, or I didn't realize, wow, this stirred up a lot. I had one lady, I had to put it down. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
that I needed this kind of healing, and I had to put it away for a little bit so I could come back to it. And so I've found that's been pretty amazing to be able to use the whole story, because I don't think I would have written the story had she still been here. Maybe I would have, I don't know, but it's definitely part of the story.
Well, God's timing is always perfect, that's for sure. And I want to
Yeah.
say something about the prayer. I was going to mention that, but the prayers at the end of each like little chapter that you have, they are very powerful. And I can see why you would get so much feedback about those. Matter of fact, I found myself just glancing over and going right to the prayer. And then I
Oh
thought,
wow.
I'll go
Okay.
to the next one, and I'll
Yeah.
go to the next one.
Love it.
Because number one, I would get a real good idea of what the particular situation was. But number
Mm.
two, it would be like one of your, your readers said, it's putting into words something maybe I hadn't really thought to really ask God to, okay, there's this kind of issue in general, and I need to address that. And here are some words that would really address that. So truly, a reader could just get the book and take those prayers,
Mhm.
which would lead them on a very personal journey, an
Yes.
inward kind of look to say, first of all, is that a prayer that resonates with me? Does anything come to mind? Can I recall anything? And then maybe jot that down and just continue going on through there. But then I wanted to circle back also when you were caregiving for your mom, because this is another quote that I have. I think this is one that I wrote from during that time. And you've really kind of already unpacked it in a way, but I just want to read it because it's so powerful. And you wrote this. This was on page 115. I did write the page on that one. But amidst the constant restroom accidents, the alcohol detoxing, forced physical therapy, and barely touched pudding cups, I became aware of a supernatural shift that had taken place. And this is so powerful. You said, I had chosen her and I hadn't regretted it. I had chosen her in her hardest hard, and it turned out to be a truly beautiful gift for me. Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey? Get your copy of the Choose to Think 365-day devotional by yours truly. It's a powerful guide to renewing your mind and living your best thought life, featuring scripture-centered devotionals endorsed by Christian songwriter Jenny Owens and applauded by Sherry White of the Messy Christian blog, who says, "This is a game changer for our Christian walk." Dive into 5-minute daily segments covering faith, purpose, relationships, emotional health, and physical wellness. But that's not all. Complete your journey with the Choose to Think companion journal. Document your reflections, share with a partner or group, and celebrate every thought-by-thought transformation that you enjoy. This is your chance to supercharge your brain and start living your best thought life today. Click the link in the show notes to peek inside and order your devotional and companion journal now. This combo makes a wonderful gift for you to do with your loved ones, or in a group of friends, or in your small group. Your transformation begins with a single thought. Isn't it time you choose to think? Get your copy today.
And that chosen word, um, I think there's probably a lot of people who would agree with me that I didn't feel chosen growing up. She didn't choose me. And I know there are a lot of daughters out there that their moms didn't choose them. They chose everything else, everyone else. They chose the favored brother. They chose the career. They chose whatever they chose else, something else. And, that brings a lot of pain. And I think it also can create some animosity towards a parent who's aging, where we have this subconscious mindset. Well, they didn't choose me in childhood. Why would I choose them when they're in need? They didn't choose me when I was in need. Why would I choose
Right,
them?
right.
And I actually, this is coming to mind. In that shift, I really felt the Lord's pleasure over me. Like, good job. Look at you. You could have chosen not to choose her. You could have chosen to leave her in that horrible nursing home. You could have chosen to, let her bumble through it by herself, or what have you. I had options. But choosing her was part of the journey of my I guess undoing what the damage that the enemy did, right? The things that the enemy means for evil, God will
Right.
use for good. And
Right.
where what the enemy would have loved for me to go, you know what? See, I'm not choosing you because I don't have to choose you. Um, but I chose surrender and um honor.
Mhm.
And it turned out it's a gift. It was a gift
Right.
to be able to nurse her back to life. That was an absolute gift.
What a blessing. Tell me what your siblings have thought about the book.
Okay, so it's interesting. Well, my twin has been part of the writing journey with me the entire book. Um Loves it. Her story is very similar because we're twins, and so we were both on that unchosen journey together. Um but she's, a huge fan and um is super, super supportive. What's really interesting is my brother, who's mentioned in the story, he actually doesn't even know about it. Um,
Oh,
he um, he struggles with a lot. He actually can't live on his own, and
I'm so
so
sorry.
he's in a place in his life where this book would really grieve him more than help him.
Mm,
There's much he doesn't know that took place. Um, and there's a to just keep honor with him, there's a lot of really valid reasons why it's best that he doesn't know about it.
mhm.
But he's kind of in a little bubble, but that's okay. um
Sure.
that's the safest place for him to be.
Yeah,
And you know I have so much else going on in my life, and my it's not like I'm worried that he'll find out about it. It's not like a secret.
I
The
understand.
extended family is well aware of it. And they've been a little surprised that I was as honest as I was, I guess is how they've put it. But nobody's been condemning or judgmental or how dare you or anything like that.
You're so courageous. I think it's a step of boldness and part of your heart, even as you mentioned earlier, is just to help others because so many of us deal with trauma or wounds from our past. And it's so much easier just to kind of push them aside or ignore them or not have to deal with their stuff. But you've really taken a stand and a step forward saying, I've been healed. You chose a path of forgiveness and love and kindness and compassion and empathy in an extraordinary way. Such a role model for others to say, okay, this gal, Nanci, really does walk in freedom and her life has been changed. That shift we were talking about, something has happened there. And it's really just healing in God's hand and his touch in your life. And maybe there are so many others who want that. So you're kind of holding the torch in your utter honesty and transparency, which I'm sure in some ways was difficult. Were you at all afraid to kind of put this, to actually publish it?
No, there's a few details that have been changed. Um, my only concern was how my dad would respond. So I
Mm,
actually asked for his blessing before I went forward with publication. I let him
okay.
read it. And it was actually a sweet moment then because he apologized for the things that he had failed
Mm,
at. And because it was is interesting. I sat down with him and I said, would it shock you to know that I hated mom for most of her life? And he was stunned. And I was like, oh my goodness, like he really was disconnected. It shocked me that
wow.
it shocked him that
Right.
this was my heart towards her. And it kind of validated where he was in the process. I'm
Mm,
not like shaming him. It's just he was stunned to realize how much hurt and pain that I'd carried because of the things I'd gone through. Um, and he repented to me again after he read it. Um, but he's very proud of it, and he supports me, and he sees the good that it's doing with other people and within ministry. And so that was really my biggest, I wouldn't call it a fear, but my concern. I didn't want to hurt him. in that process.
Right. Right.
Um,
Oh,
and
I can.
and I wanted to honor him in that, and I believe that he feels honored in that way.
Mm. Well, let
Um,
me ask you this. This question kind of just occurred to me. I'm thinking, I have 4 children. They're all now married, and I'm blessed with grandchildren like you are. But I think about, I can go to my parents' parents, my grandparents, and how they parented. Then I can, or what little I know of it, or what maybe has been told to me about their different parenting styles and so forth, or maybe different stories and incidents. And then I know how my parents parented me and my sister. I just have one sibling. And then I know how I've parented my children. And the question, the thought that kind of occurred to me is, as parents, we all make mistakes. We all fall short. I don't think I could find any parent who would say, I just did it just so well, so kind of quote unquote perfectly. There were really no issues. And I mean, occasionally you might look at families and you're like, how did they do that? They just happy marriage, happy kids,
yep.
kids who love the Lord.
Those
Everyone's
are so
just,
rare, so rare.
yeah, but you do see those and you're like, oh gosh, of course, we try not to compare ourselves and all of that. But my point is that there's got to be a margin of grace, and love covers over a multitude of sin. We know that scripture verse, which I love because I've goofed so much in my life. So, where or how would your story be different, let's say, than just the ordinary? Say there's a spectrum there where parents are going to goof. They're going to say things they don't mean. They're going to trip up. They're going to do things that would be, maybe the children saw that are horrific, that maybe nobody else know. Maybe they're, I don't know what the broad, little spectrum might be there, but from an otherwise quote unquote average or normal amount of error, human error, relationship errors, that because we're all carrying our own stuff, right? So we just kind of keep passing some of this down. But how is your story any different? How does it fall beyond that kind of
Right. Yeah.
normal range? Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of ways to look at that. First, I certainly was not healed when I was raising my children. So I've
Mm-hmm.
repented to them, and I've, encouraged them to go get their own therapy and their own counseling. And because
Right.
I messed up significantly. Um, I am very intentional as a grandmother to give my grandchildren the things that I did not get as a child or give to my children, whether it's, words of affirmation, whether it's reminding them who they are, speaking identity. I didn't know anything about speaking identity when my kids were young, and my parents never heard of that. And so my goal is that we can stop it in the next generation by getting to the grandchildren and speaking identity, making sure that they know what God says about them. And, even being a safe place if they want to say, well, mommy was mean or daddy was mean or whatever, that they have a place of confidence, but also of wise, biblical, godly, loving counsel to
Mhm.
give them a different platform. One of the things that came to mind when you were talking about just, we mess up, parents mess up. I think there's a big difference between the families where there is no accountability, no apology, no owning of the mess up, and the
Mhm.
families that mess up but own it and apologize. I think there's
Mhm.
a huge difference. And I was in the former where we're perfect. We don't make mistakes. Why would I apologize to you? You're a child. And what I want matters, and you're a child. Why should you think that what you want matters? Um, that environment creates belief systems that teach us to defend and to lie and to hide and to cover and to not
Mhm.
look at our own, not be humble, right? But I think in a family, yeah, we're going to mess up, we're going to make mistakes. But in the families where, the Lord is the foundation, but there's a humility to go, you know what? I really messed up yesterday when I blew up at you. Daddy was tired. I had a really long day and you didn't deserve that. And I'm really sorry. Will you forgive me? That is, I think, more the goal, not trying to be perfect, because this side of heaven, none of us will be, right?
Mhm.
But acknowledging that I hurt you and I am sorry is massive, right? I've learned
Mm,
how to even apologize to my young grandkids if I, you know, step on their toe or knock their milk over, whatever it is, that they
right.
hear a grown up saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry that I did that," or "I dropped your favorite thing and broke it," whatever. Um, I think that's huge. And so instead of maybe our families going, "Oh gosh, well, I've got to try to be perfect." No, I just want to be authentic and I want to own my stuff so that I can show what it looks like to be humble and to ask for forgiveness. I think that's the
Mm,
difference.
yeah, beautiful answer. I love that. Toward the end of your book, Nancy, you talk about lists.
Mhm.
Can we chat about what are all these lists all about? What would you encourage the reader to do then?
So the list making is kind of an internal reflection journey of, where did I get hurt? Where did I feel trauma? Where did I feel unloved? Where did I feel shamed? I think we have this concept of forgiveness that's kind of a blanket forgiveness. Oh, I forgive mom. But underneath that blanket, there's all kinds of stones and wounds and blood and trauma and stuff that is still hurts and still smarts and still affects me. And so what my mentor taught me, and then I use this every single time I sit with somebody, we're going to get a piece of paper and we're going to write everything down. Did mom make me feel wanted? Did she give me enough hugs and kisses as a child? Did she favor my brother? Did she call me a name over and over again?
Hmm.
Was she, wagging her finger at me and tell me I'll never amount to anything? Though these phrases that stick in our minds well into our adulthood, we remember these from childhood and they still sting.
Right.
So we're making these lists, not as a sin record. And I want to delineate from that. We're not doing this to wag a finger back at mom and go, "Well, look at what you did to me." This is my list of what I choose to bring to the Lord to release it to
Hmm.
him through forgiveness. And
Right.
so when I make my list, and it's, specific, you forgot me at the mall and had to walk home and I was angry. You called me out at the family reunion and I was embarrassed, because I'm naming emotions along with these things. When I choose to take that as my outline for forgiveness, it changes how I forgive. And so at the end of the book, there's a section called the empty chair exercise. And so you imagine your offender, dead or alive, what doesn't matter. They're sitting right in front of you, and you speak to them as if they're there. "Mom, I choose to forgive you for forgetting me at the mall and I had to walk home. I forgive that you didn't think about me. Mom, I choose to forgive you for shaming me in front of the family reunion. I forgive you for how that hurt my heart and I didn't deserve it. Mom, I forgive you for. Mom, I forgive you for, and for how it made me feel. Mom, I forgive." And I'm I'm checking my list off. Okay. I'm naming it. And as I mentioned earlier, like, this process can be very emotional,
I'm
because
sure.
I may have never really addressed the fact that my mom humiliated me in front of 67 people, and I felt small and stupid and exposed all these things. And so when I am saying it, like, it has a chance for the stuff I've shoved down to come up, and it needs to come up, it needs to come out, and I need to give it to the Lord. So my list on forgive, forgive, forgive. And basically when I'm done, like, I tear it up, throw it away, burn it, whatever I need to do. And like, it's amazing how much I can breathe and how taller I sit, and oh my gosh, the room is brighter and all these things. I didn't realize that it's kind of like in the that fable, the Pilgrim's Progress, where he
Hmm.
starts his journey with this massive backpack. I think there's rocks and stuff in it. He doesn't even know he has it. And the higher he climbs, the smaller the backpack gets. It's just like that. And so, like,
Mm.
we have no idea how much baggage has come from these little line item incidents until I release them and I'm free of them. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, my neck is free. I've been
It
able to
just
move my
feels
neck in
better.
years, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's fabulous. It's
Yeah.
it's a lifestyle and it's amazing.
Yeah. I like how you talk about how this whole process isn't just out to blame our parents for things.
No,
It
because there's
is,
no point in that. It doesn't
that's
change what
right.
happened. Yeah.
It doesn't. It's more of just saying, these are the incidences that I
Yeah. Facts.
recall
Yep.
where I felt hurt or wounded. But now I want to move beyond that and I want to release those issues, those incidents, and offer forgiveness in their place with God's help, of course, along the way. And just to finally, just release them, like you said, just to let them go because they're really not serving any purpose, any healthy purpose
No,
in our
exactly.
lives. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Well,
you
I
know,
won't.
coming to the position where I recognize that just like Jesus on the cross when he was being nailed, he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing.
Right.
The people that wound us don't know what they're doing. Even if it felt like what they were doing was intentional, they had no idea the damage they were doing. And I can
Mm,
pull grace from that and go, you know what? She had no clue what she was doing because she was so broken and he was so broken and his parents were so broken and her parents, you know, there's no healthy process of trying to nail blame to somebody because it doesn't
mm,
undo what was done. Only the
mm.
Lord can release that.
Yeah, so good. Well, my last question for you, Nanci, as I've been thinking how we might kind of wrap things up, and I want everybody to go out and get your book. Do you have a copy you can show up? I'll also put it into the
Yeah,
video,
here
but
it
yeah,
is.
it's called
Angry
Angry
Daughter.
Daughter, A Journey from Hatred to Love. I'm wondering, is there anything that if your mom were here today as a result of the last 2.5 years since she's been gone and this whole 7 year journey you've had in writing this book, this health journey that you've embarked on, emotional and spiritual health, what might you like to say to your mom? Is there any little thing you might like to tell her
You
that
know,
maybe you
my
haven't
first
told
thought,
her?
my first thought was is to thank her. Um,
Mm,
I don't know that I've ever adequately thanked her for the gift of loving music and the capacity for playing music, singing music. Music was massive, and the book is full of different
yeah.
components of music. Um, but you know, I can sit down and play the piano and do worship or what have you, and that's all because she brought music. And I would just say thank you for for her love of music, for her passion for classical music, quality music, good music. Um, and to tell her that I understand where she was coming from. That the word it's okay doesn't sound right, but that I'm at peace, that I am at total peace, and that I understand.
Mm. Mm, that's so pretty. That's beautiful. Well, where can everyone get your book, Nanci?
Great. Yes. So it's on Amazon. There's a print paperback or Amazon Kindle, and then it's also on Google as an ebook download. Any of
Nice.
those places.
Yeah.
It's actually if you're in Ackworth, it's for sale at the Crazy Book Lady shop in Ackworth as well. Hoping to get
Okay.
it into some more stores shortly, but we'll see. But right for now, it's on Amazon.
And what if folks want to reach out to you? Where should they go?
So all my handles are Lamborn Author. So my Facebook page is Lamborn Author. My
Okay.
Instagram handle is Lamborn Author. You can direct message me there. My website is lambornauthor.inc, and that's ink as in the pen, INK, not INC, but
Okay.
INK, lambornauthor.inc. Any of those places they can reach me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and just
Well, thank
sharing your
you.
journey
This has been fun. I've
and
loved this.
yeah, and encouraging so many others. And because let me just ask this, like, what would be next for you? You have a spiritual mentor, you've now done this great work. Is there another area of your life that you think, okay, I need to go in this direction now?
So, I'm in full-time ministry, so I minister to people every day almost. I am taking this book and I'm turning it into a study, a women's study. It's called Angry No More. And
Okay.
I've created like a 6-week journal where we're going to take chapters that are topically connected, and we'll
Okay.
discuss those chapters. And there's kind of a week, very light homework to pray about things and journal about things and whatnot. And so I'm going to be releasing that as a study probably before, I'll say before the end of September. I'll put that out there, and I'll be hosting it live on Zoom. All someone needs is the book, and I'll, give them the journaling workbook part. I'm also in the middle of probably actually about 3/4 of the way done with a couple study that has come out of all this ministry. It's called Lenses of Love, and it teaches couples this truth that, what happened around my kitchen table as a third grader is what's happening around my kitchen table with third graders, right? And how the lenses we pick up through this stuff we have happened to experience in the past, how it's contributing to dysfunction in my home and more anger and resentment and the patterns and the traumas and things. And it's a couple study together, and it's a journey for couples to unpack different elements of life, the whole realm about faith. What did faith look like in your upbringing? And how has that brought lenses into our marriage today that aren't godly and that aren't healthy? So it's an alpha reading stage right now. I've got about 8 couples that are all in the first
Going through.
round
Yeah.
of beginning. And so that'll probably, if I had to guess on when it would be able to hit the shelves, probably going to be early 2025 by the time that's done.
Okay.
And I'm writing other things. I'm working on a novel based on a true story of a dramatic healing. And I'm just, whatever God wants to bring this way, like, bring it, Lord, because I'm doing it all.
Well, you are definitely a kingdom influencer, and it has just been delightful to have you on the show. And I'm so excited for what the Lord has in store for you, Nancy. It sounds like one big adventure, and it
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
so
Oh, it's
fun.
fun.
So,
It's so fun. Life is
yeah,
fun. Yeah.
it is fun. Enjoy those grandbabies too. So,
Oh,
God
yes.
bless you.
Yes. Thank
God
you.
bless you.
Well.
Thank you so much.
Hey there, I'm Victoria, a certified Christian life coach, author, motivational speaker, and university educator, and I am obsessed with helping you navigate through life's ups and downs so that you can live day by day in God's peace despite the many external demands on your time and energy. The Choose to Think Inspirational podcast is about the delicate dance between God transforming you from the inside out and your personal responsibility for change, maturity, and refinement as a Christ follower. On the show, I'll help you connect the dots between your faith and your life in practical, meaningful ways while giving God room to do what only He can do, and so that you can shine your light for Christ and be better equipped to serve your family and help others around you. You can change every area of your life, one thought at a time. Welcome back to the Choose to Think Inspirational podcast, Brain Changer. Let's dive in.